It's a glow rod. It's what we got.
Does it work?
Well,
Guess so.
Gun control legislation. What is Florida doing? I'm talking policy-wise here. What have they actually done after the deadly shooting last month? Florida's Attorney General Pam Bondi joins us now. Madam Attorney General, can you tell us exactly what Florida has done? Not what you're debating, not what you're thinking about. What concrete action has been taken?
Well, it's in the process of being taken, Stuart. It is on the floor of the Senate today at 10 o'clock, and then it will be in the House for final passage either Tuesday or Wednesday. So we're in the very final stages. And what that bill includes is Governor Scott, Rick Scott, has become a champion of this. He brought all sides together. You know, in a time of crisis, it's about finding common ground, and that's what Governor Scott's done. So this is a comprehensive package. It's $450 million. And Speaker Negron and Speaker Corcoran and Senate President Negron support this, and it's been a great act of everyone coming together. It's $450 million. What it does is it provides school security. It's going to ensure that every school in Florida is much safer, infrastructure, everything that we need to keep our schools safe. Okay. It's going to provide law enforcement officers for every 1,000 students, a school resource officer, and that was something that was lacking in our state, as well as mental health, which is huge. It has a gun violence restraining order in there. It raises the age of purchasing an assault rifle to 21, and it's banning bump stocks.
Okay, now that's a comprehensive approach. I got it, and that's what you're about to do that. Now, yes. There are 24 states that are pushing bills that would allow for guns to be taken away from people who are judged mentally unfit. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know whether Florida is one of those states, but what do you think about that kind of move?
Well, here's what we're doing in Florida, because we have to have due process, of course, for those who have been civilly committed. And my office, we've done all the legal research, and here's what our proposal is in Florida. It's called the Gun Violence Restraining Order. And so, Stuart, if you're civilly committed, in Florida it's called a Baker Act, what will happen is law enforcement can and should automatically remove any firearms, because that shows you're a danger to yourself or others when you're civilly committed. Then after someone is released from civil commitment, law enforcement will have 72 hours to go before a judge and ask the judge if they choose to hold those guns even longer if they feel that the person is, again, a threat to themselves or to others.
Okay. You've been in the room in the White House when the president was having an open, free-for-all discussion, both sides of the aisle involved. Mm-hmm. I think, this is my opinion now, I think that has made a significant difference in the gun debate, and you were in the room.
Yeah, I was, Stuart. You know, I was also in the room for a very private meeting recently that the president had with families from Texas, from Sandy Hook, from, of course, Parkland. And he truly cares. And again, this is about finding common ground. That's why nothing ever gets done in Congress, in my opinion. People are so polarized to one side or the other. And, you know, we just experienced a traumatic school shooting in Florida, and it's finding common ground, something that both sides can agree on. And President Trump has been just amazing, listening to these families and really being a mediator, I think, with Congress. And hopefully Congress will follow Florida's lead and what Governor Scott's been doing here in Florida, and all of us working so well together.
Pam Bondi, Attorney General of the state of Florida, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Stuart.
Reaction, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, along with former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Both of you, thanks so much for being here tonight. Greg, let me start with you. You got a great piece up at foxnews.com talking about the constitutional hurdles of this. Oh, that pesky document that they wish they could circumvent. Yet again, it might be the one thing standing between us and a gun grab.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's understandable that emotions are running high, and emotions sometimes lead to action, but those actions aren't always lawful. And Joe Biden can demonize the NRA, gun manufacturers, and Republicans all he wants. That's not his problem. The problem is that pesky document called the Constitution, and specifically the Second Amendment. You know, in the landmark Heller decision, the United States Supreme Court validated the individual right to keep and bear arms. They said some limited regulations are permissible. Then they named them: keeping guns out of the hands of felons and the mentally ill, away from schools and government buildings. But it's abundantly clear that beyond that, doing what Biden wants to do, which is to ban an entire class of weapons owned by 15 million Americans, would not pass constitutional scrutiny. In fact, the liberal-leaning Ninth Circuit just last month struck down California's ban involving the sale of AR-15s. Biden knows all of this because in his speech not once but twice last night, he said, if we can't ban assault weapons then, and he proposed some fairly reasonable other options, such as increased school security, red flag laws, better background checks, and so forth. And there's actually some bipartisan support for that. But what he's asking lawmakers to do appears to be unconstitutional, unless you amend the Constitution. But that requires a vote of 2/3 of both houses, ratification by 3/4 of the state. That ain't going to happen.
That ain't going to happen. Pam, and, you know, every time he talks about it, he demonizes, he always goes after the straw man of the NRA, right? That's the one that he loves to talk about. But even doing that is condescending to average Americans who simply understand the centrality of the First and Second Amendment, the individual rights given to empower individual free people. They've totally lost sight of that. And they would go for every, I mean, I really mean this. They'd go for every gun if they could.
They would, Pete. And as Greg, that piece was incredible that you put in Fox News today. I think everyone should go on and read it because it lays out exactly what you just said. It's a fundamental right. It is our right to bear arms and to defend ourselves. And, you know, it's interesting, the Joe Biden of the 80s, who we seem to like a lot more, who said that, yeah, you're not going to take guns out of the hands of criminals, was absolutely correct. You know, Pete, when I was a young prosecutor, way before I was Attorney General, I was in my early 20s, I had a stalker for years. I don't talk about it a lot, but I learned to shoot from law enforcement. They taught me to shoot because I didn't have the luxuries that Hillary Clinton has, that Joe Biden has, of full-time protection. And I had to learn to shoot a gun to protect myself. My stalker ultimately committed suicide. That's how serious it was. But I deserve the right to protect myself, as do all Americans in their homes, to be safe. And that's what the Second Amendment says, and that's what Heller says loud and clear, the Heller opinion from 2008. And I find it astonishing that they keep our borders wide open and they let criminals come into this country. They let cartels in, they let gangs in, and illegal guns are coming into our country that way. And it's okay for that to happen, but not for law-abiding citizens to have guns.
Greg, it's just like speech, even with red flag laws. The idea that someone else gets to make a determination, someone you don't know, unaccountable to you, to make the designation about whether the speech you're saying is acceptable or whether the gun you'd like to own is one you can own. We're all for, you know, the reality that there are people that shouldn't own some, but it all comes down to who the decider is, Greg.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, which is why many of those cases, there's more than a dozen red flag laws in states already, and they're being legally challenged, and we'll have to see how that litigation goes forward. You know, there are problems with several of the ideas he proposed last night, but the strongest proposal he had, more money for school security, to make sure that where our children are located for 7, 8, 9 hours a day, that they are safe and secure. Those are the best measures. And I do agree that added money for health care programs would also be helpful, because that's a common denominator that we see in so many of these mass shootings.
For sure. Pam, we only got about 15 seconds. Last word.
Yeah, that's what we did after the Parkland shooting, did everything we could in Florida to strengthen our schools, harden our schools, and give more law enforcement security at each and every school in our state. And we do need to do that throughout our country to protect our children.
if you actually want to address the problem at hand. You're precisely right. Pam Bondi, thank you for sharing that personal story, and Greg as well for that great piece. Check it out at foxnews.com.
Approach and repeat ultimatum in an even firmer tone of voice. Add the words, or else.
Simon Phoenix, lie down on the ground, or else.